This is the last part of chapter 28. We're going to be looking at the Glorious Revolution in England, the Haitian Revolution, and Latin American revolutions that will all stem and inspired by from the American Revolution and the French Revolution. First, we're going to look at the Glorious Revolution. It actually happened before all the revolutions, before the American Revolution, the French Revolution. What's happening with this revolution is that there's an issue about who really becomes the next king. And from what we've seen before is Henry VIII, he divorced himself from the Catholic Church and he becomes Protestant. But his problem was that one of his wives was Catholic, and his first two wives didn't have males, they had females. And so this is going to lead us into our secession issue, that Charles II has no legitimate heir, so it goes to his brother who's Catholic. And we're going to see that to avoid conflict, they're going to marry James to the daughter Mary, to his daughter Mary, William of Orange. And so he is a Protestant ruler. And the king and parliament are still fighting who has absolute authority. And we're going to see at this time the people want more rights. And so what's going to resolve out of this is that for the Protestants to remain, they're going to agree, Mary and James, they're going to agree to the English Bill of Rights, and they get to be the monarchs. This establishes Parliament as supreme. And this is going to move us to a constitutional monarchy where the Constitution limits what the monarchy could do, and Parliament is essentially a democracy. So we're going to look at the English Bill of Rights. The king could not suspend operation of laws. Again, it's limiting the king's rights. The king cannot interfere in the ordinary course of justice. Again, limiting the king's rights. No taxes levied or standards of army maintained in peace times without Parliament's consent. Again, Parliament is given more power. There is freedom of speech in Parliament. The secession of Parliament will be held frequently. Basically, like we have here in the United States, we have the fall season and then the spring season of Congress. Subjects have the right to bail. That means post bail, to get out of jail, petition that they could ask the government to address some grievances, freedom from excessive fines, and cruel and unusual punishment. Those are things that we kind of see in our Bill of Rights today. We see the monarchy must be a Protestant. We get freedom from arbitrary arrest, that you have to know why you're being held. That's called habeas corpus. Again, we see that in our English Bill of Rights. Censorship of the press was dropped, so freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and freedom of religion. All of these things in the Bill of Rights are going to be the basis for the American Bill of Rights. And again, I told you this is happening prior to the American Revolution. What we're going to look at is the Haitian Revolution, and the Haitian Revolution actually has its basis in the French Revolution. We see what we're looking at Haiti is it's in the Caribbean island of Hispaniola. These Caribbean islands are the major producer for sugar, and we see that it's a French colony. It's one of the richest colonies in the European colonies because it produces sugar, coffee, and cotton. And this basically makes up 1/3 of France's foreign trade, so it's very important to it. We're going to see the social classes. There is about 40,000 white French settlers, and the gens de couleur are 30,000. These are free people of color, including mulattoes and free slaves, and then the bottom half is slaves. What will happen is the slave revolt will be encouraged by what we see in the American Revolution, because a lot of these free gens de couleur will go and help in the American Revolution. The French Revolution has the Declaration of the Rights of Man, that all men are equal, and that will inspire our slave revolt here. So what stems as the catalyst is that we see white settlers and the gens de couleur begin to fight because they don't want to give political equality to the gens de couleur. And we see This will inspire a slave revolt. The slaves begin killing white settlers, burning their homes, destroying their plantations, and this will lead to chaos. And the French, the British, and the Spanish come in to intervene. We're thinking, like, why do the British and Spanish want to come? But you have to understand that the sugar that's produced here also goes to Britain and Spain, and they're very interested in making sure that they have a stable supply of sugar. And so one of the leaders that you'll have to know for our test is Francisco Dominique Toussaint, and we know him as Toussaint Louverture. He's going to be leader of the slave revolt, and one of the things is that he is going to say that we need to give all equal citizenship to all residents in Santo Domingo. And we see he doesn't want to have an attack with Napoleon, but he's not fully declaring independence. He's just trying to get equality for the gens de couleur and the slaves. So eventually Napoleon will send troops in. Negotiations fail. Toussaint is sent to jail. Yellow fever actually helps the slave revolt because it wipes out our French forces. And by 1803, Toussaint doesn't declare independence, but the local generals will declare independence. And Haiti is established as a republic. It's the second independent republic in the Western Hemisphere. Again, the first is the Americas, the United States, and the second is Haiti. But this is going to put fear into a lot of people who own slaves, that the slaves can rise up, they could organize and foment a rebellion. And so in the South United States, many plantation farmers begin to be scared of a possible slave revolt. Now what we're going to look at is the Latin American revolutions. We're going to see that citizens in the Portuguese and Spanish colonies are inspired by the American Haitian revolutions. The main people who are the driving force for the revolutions are the Creoles. And we remember the Peninsulares are at the top. They're the people who get the most positions. They're the people who are born in Europe. The Creoles are Americans who are European descent, who are born here, but they don't get the best positions. They own large plantations and ranches. They're upset that the colonial positions are controlled by the Peninsulares, and they're inspired by the American Revolution about new social change, that since they are born here, maybe they know better, maybe they are more enlightened, and they want to displace the Peninsulares and retain their position within society. They want to move on up. So what we're going to look at is how these revolutions occur. So most of the territory in green is the Spanish, and then the Portuguese is the orange. And a lot of this comes from the way that Latin America is divided up, is from that Treaty of Tordesillas that we've seen before. And we've already talked about the American Revolution. So what we're going to really look at is these two territories of Spanish and Portuguese. So the first independence movement beyond Haiti is going to, in Latin America, is going to deal with the Mexican independence movement. And it actually starts from the peasants. It's not going to start from the Creoles, but we'll see that the Creoles will use the peasant revolt as a way to justify their means of control. So this peasant revolt is actually started by a priest, Miguel de Hidalgo. He's going to say we need a new government, that this government needs to redistribute land to the peasants. We need equality for peasants. We need a return of the indigenous lands to the indigenous people. The people will rise up. Miguel Hidalgo will be captured, and he'll be drawn and quartered in Guanajuato. We see that we will get the end of colonial rule, but this is when Augustin de Iturbide will come and galvanize the Creoles and galvanize the peasants to come in his group of people to rise up. I think that may be the next slide. There we go. Simon Bolivar, he is going to try to achieve independence for his own country. And he's a Creole. Again, this is where they're upset that they're not getting the best positions. And he's inspired by the Enlightenment. He wants to be like George Washington. He wants to unite all the Latin American countries together and form a Latin American United States. And we will see he will assemble an army. He's going to take over Colombia, and then eventually try to gain later campaigns to get control of Venezuela, Ecuador, and Peru. Other leaders who will follow him, we see Jose de San Martin in Argentina and Bernardo Higgins. We will see that Simon Bolivar had this grand idea to unite all of the colonies that were Spanish together, but he's never able to. Brazilian independence, however, is a little bit different. It's bloodless. And a lot of it stems from when Napoleon Bonaparte had taken over the Iberian Peninsula. The monarch, King João, said, peace out, we're done. I'm not going to stay in Portugal and to fight Napoleon. And he moves the monarchy to Rio de Janeiro. And while he's Rio de Janeiro, we see that they bring in society to Brazil. And when Napoleon is defeated after the Battle of Waterloo, King João will go back. And he will leave his son Pedro, Dom Pedro, to govern Brazil. But what will happen is the Brazilian Creoles will call for independence. And what Pedro does is he agrees to their demands. And he says, as long as I agree to your demands, I will be emperor. And he agrees to it. He agrees and gives them the concessions. And now he becomes the king of Brazil. Again, they're keeping it all in the family. It's just his dad's gone back home and now he's king here in Brazil. In the whole gist of things, of the revolutions, it's always people who are upset about the lack of social change. In Latin America, we see that it is the Creoles who are upset with the Peninsulares, that they're not getting the best position. Eventually, what will happen is they're going to replace this with the caudillos. These are local strongmen who grant military authority, and they will align with the Creole elites to continue their domination. We're going to see not much changes. Slavery continues. The Roman Catholic Church will be here. There will be repression of the slaves and the peasants. And the principal beneficiaries of the independence movements in Latin America are the Creole elites. Okay, I know we're done with this. I think that was our last slide. What we're going to do is we have 2 crash courses, one on the Haitian Revolution and one on the revolutions in Latin America. We're going to do those next. And then you're going to have a review quiz and you should have gotten a binder, okay? So we should have enough time for that.